recording. We're going to be talking about the Representations Project and then going into a little Q&A. I've been collecting questions since I started thinking about this project, and there's a lot of really great questions to get to. But first, let's take a look. I'm going to do a screen share here. And yeah. Okay. If nobody can see that, then holler at me. I think you should be able to, though. Okay, so this is the website, and this is on my website, jenpalmer.art. And I went ahead and we have this whole section here for the Representations Project where we have this. You can click here. It'll just take you to this basic intro page that talks about the project, which is a collaborative project encouraging women to take up space and affect the future at the intersection of art and technology. And before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about knowledge and hesitation to engage in these sorts of technology. So this is why I wanted to do this project, is because my hope is that I can make this less scary and share enough information so that people know what the heck is going on, enough to be informed about it and use it if you want. So you can come on here and read all about this. And then we have the project updates, which you can access up here, our events, we have the submission gallery, and then our collectibles. And so the project updates are all here. You can go through. There's a video about making NFTs with Scent. I'm not going to get too far into the Q&A about NFTs today. Most of the questions are about artificial intelligence. I went into depth about the NFTs, so this is a good place to go and watch that video and comment or message me with any questions you have about it after that. We have the submissions. So everybody submitted work and they all have a bio and or information about the piece, whatever they wanted to send in. And then all of their links, if you have links, they'll all be here. So you can check out all of the artists, the piece that they submitted, all the information about them, the work, everything is here. And there are a total of 34 artists. So please come check all of this out. And you'll see the variety here of these pieces. We had painting, we had sculpture. This is like a virtual reality. This is an Instagram filter. And then we have some painting. We have AI created works, photography. There's sculptural pieces. And so all of these images, typically when you would make a data set, you would want the data to be very similar, but it was really fun for me to just see what happens. So we have a variety of like abstract, representational, watercolor and encaustic, oil, acrylic, digital. We span all the things here, which is really cool. Because then when you go to go back to our main page here, and we visit the exhibition, you will see, I'm not going to get into this now because this will take us to the spatial gallery. You can walk around virtually in the spatial gallery and check out all of those works and collect the NFTs. Or we can go to our collectibles page, which has all of the pieces except for the video. And let me see. Yeah, okay. Trying to make sure I don't have anybody coming in here that needs to be, okay. Good. There we go. So these are all of the collectibles. This is the work that was created using a couple different artificial intelligence models. We used Playform to start with, And then we also used a new one called Leonardo. And Leonardo also allows us to train a model, but it's not purely visual. It is also has a text component. And then we also use the blend tool in Midjourney. And so these are all the main pieces that you can walk around and look at in the virtual gallery. You can collect the NFTs here by clicking on the collect button. And then we also made a supporter gallery at the request of some of the artists who were participating. People collected the first NFTs that we did pretty quickly, and there was some interest in seeing what would happen if we put some out there that you pay to collect. So there are a variety of numbers of editions and of the, let's see here, if you click collect, you can see that there are 50 of these available. They're $80. And so if someone would like to support this project, you can purchase an NFT here for some amount of money, and there are a variety of those available. And that, if we collected enough, I would distribute amongst the artists. It would have to be more than what the fees would be to distribute that amount. But so if somebody collected a lot of these, then it would be really cool to give something back to everybody. If it's a small amount, it's definitely just going to go towards doing more projects like this, which is what I had said originally, because we weren't sure what is going to happen with all this work. But we do have this collector or supporter gallery here too. So all of that can be viewed along with a couple of video pieces that aren't here in that gallery. And even if you just go to the home page, I have everything right here. You can click this to go straight to the virtual exhibition. You can read about the project, or you can get the collectibles. So that is the basis of the project. And a lot of this is just about education. So I'm going to stop presenting now. And I'm going to go into questions. So I'm going to ask the people who are here right now if they have any specific questions to get us started about the project or artificial intelligence. So, okay, let me pull it. I hear somebody.
It's me.
Oh, hey, Terry.
I want to first and foremost say, oh my God, Jen, this is an amazing undertaking. I'm just looking at it. It's breathtaking. It's gorgeous. I love my art being blended with other artists. I think this is incredible. So the question that I have is, can you go through or talk a little bit more about the AI process with Playform, and then where did you interject Leonardo?
Yeah, so I know that I've taught some people who will be watching this about Playform already. Terry is familiar with Playform. That's how we met. And what do you want me to pull it up and show the project? Yes, you do. I can see that. Let's go ahead and open. Let me find which window I need to do this in. And I shared some of this with on Instagram when I was, of course, I'm like, am I in the wrong window? Let me see what I'm doing here. Should be. Okay. I normally don't have to sign in, and it's telling me I have to log in, which is why I was taking, oh, no, there we go. All right, so I have that pulled up, and I was gonna say I shared some of this whenever I was working on the project and just kind of streaming on Instagram Live, and it's kind of hard for everybody to see, so we'll look at it again now. And, okay. So This is Playform, and I will go to this project, which I trained numerous times with different settings. And so this is the input. And this might be a good time to talk about one of the questions that I had was about where did these images go? That we had, art from 34 different artists, and they are private on here, and they are only kind of looked at and learned from. And then these are the results that we get, which are very abstract because our data was all over the place. And so we get all of these, like this is the beginning of the development of that image in Playform. Can you guys hear my cat? My cat is 20 years old, and I think she thinks she hasn't been fed in like a while, and she has. So sorry about her meowing. But Carrie, did you have any specific questions about this because you've used Playform?
I've used Playform. I just thought it would be really great to show, how it is. And the one thing that the most important thing that you were talking about is this is private. So whereas other AI creators such as Midjourney on the public, using it publicly, your data, your information goes in and is constantly mixing with everybody else's. Here, this is private. We control it in a way because we're uploading the information and allowing the algorithm to do its thing. So no one else has access to it. These are incredible, Jen. These are absolutely beautiful. So
it's so fun to see what happens. And a lot of these, then what I do is go in and do this mixing process. So we would create this mix. And I think I shared some clips of this because it does take a little while for everything to load. But you can make things public on here if you want to, but by default, they are private. You can share things with the community if you make them on here, but you can have your own collections of your own artwork. And as an artist, it's just really cool to have this tool to come play with.
How many images were you able to generate, like from all the combinations that you have? It could literally be thousands, right?
It can be completely infinite. So let's see. I did this numerous times. So here we had 12,800, and then here I had 28,160, and then that doesn't even. Does it tell me how many I made? I don't think it does anywhere. Like these were the ones that I saved. So working with that mix grid and influencing that grid to get results that we wanted, then I work with these in the videos. But there's so much interesting content here as well that has been created by these generations that I'm like, I didn't do anything with this. So we have thousands of images that like collectively as artists, we could decide to do something with. I think it'd be really fun for everybody to like pick a piece and then work from it again, like now do something else with it, right? Because it can just, this is great for ideation. Some of them we have like a very botanical feel to them, or this like landscape thing happening in a lot of these. Just where those, because we did have some landscapes, and you can see like the sort of tree-shaped forms and some of the lines that come through that I recognize as one of the sculptural pieces in too. And then this is one I was saying where Megan's work and my work and some of the other ones that have these like wavy forms, like they really come through here.
Yeah, I see that one for sure.
And then once you look through if you look through all of the website, all the work on there, and like scroll through that and walk through the gallery at the same time, if you can, like you could spot the influence with some of that work. So that is Playform. And we have, like I said, there are, I don't know, like 100,000 different images that are created that we can do something with after this. This project is really about education encouragement. So any way that any of the artists who are participating see fit to use these images, I'd love to hear ideas about that in your own work. I know there's a lot of painters. And Verona took place in this project, and she has learned Playform before, and I think she's been using it about a year or so. Yeah, it is expansive. It's like you could just keep going and keep going and keep going and exploring. Let's see. So that was Playform, and this is the website here. I was just showing for the people that just hopped on. If you go to jenpalmer.art, all of the representation stuff is here. And then we have, you can go straight to the project and learn about the project, or you can go to the collectibles. You can click here to go to the virtual gallery or visit any of these places. And that submission gallery with all the pieces that influence things are in here, along with the artist bios, information about the piece, the title, and then links. So there's a lot of really amazing people doing amazing things that have contributed pieces to this, from people that are have never tried AI stuff to people that have a lot of experience with it. So I'm going to go ahead and close these, find my window again, stop presenting so I can see well. So I have any other questions from anyone who is here right now? All right.
Are we able to generate our own pieces? Like, is that where Cint comes in to generate, or the collection that you have is already, and that's it?
So I have that collection, and I kind of think it'd be cool to figure out a way for people to use it. Our model on Leonardo, because you did ask about that too. So Leonardo is, it allows us to train a model, and that model is private right now. And I'm just on the trial mode for that. I've not paid for anything with Leonardo. It's all, it's fairly new, and I really like it though. Like there's a lot of different variations. So it's probably not the best tool for people to just start learning with, where I think Playform is very user friendly. You could be an artist and hop on there and figure out how to do things pretty easily. But Leonardo has so many different things you can tweak. And so I really tried to stay true to the data with Leonardo and not influence it with a lot of words or adding in other imagery or sentences. I had to pick a phrase. And so I used the phrase abstract art because I assumed that's what we were going to get with the data that we had. And then, but it was interesting how then I could pull in one of the pieces that had a face on it and get some of the, we would get something more representational if I reintroduced, because then that data is stronger, using that original image as an influence with the model that had been trained on all of our work. So Leonardo was really fun for sure. And I think we could make that model public if we wanted to, and then everybody could generate things with it. I would love to find a way to work on it where it's private to us. But we could all make things from it. The other thing is to take all the images that I've generated and put them somewhere that we can collectively access them, which I think would be cool. So open to ideas if anybody wants to take these things and use them as thumbnails to create something new. I was mentioning Verona because that's one of the things she did, was had 2 bodies of work and put them together in Playform to see what they might look like. And now she's doing painting of what some of these things look like. So I think as traditional artists, there are tons of ways to use this stuff, even if your output isn't digital.
Is there something that we can do with ArtMine and see if, in that way, I know it's like Poly or ETH, but that way, any collector could come in and just, do that random generator that they have in there?
Yeah, that would be kind of fun, because I did work with the results from Playform in Midjourney. Because we don't have the option to train a model there. I use the blend tool in Midjourney, so we can select a few of the images that were generated. You can select up to 5, and you're supposed to be able to select up to 30 in the alpha mode, but it wasn't working, which is alpha mode, right? So it's brand new. I'm testing it, and it timed out every single time I tried to use like more than 10. So I picked like 10 of the generated images, or 5 of them in the stable model, and blended them together. So essentially it's just using that information and combining them. And I just really like the quality, I would say, of Midjourney is new. Playform has been out since 2017. Was that when that was built? I want to say around 2017, which is like, if you think about all the advancements made with the technology in the past year, that's just like, it's vastly different, I want to say, like quality wise, as far as the visual aesthetic of it. And it's interesting to take those and from Playform and put them in Midjourney and just see what happened. So I played around with that some, and as well as like the Leonardo images, I did take some. So it would be interesting to take all of the stuff and train a new model in Playform with like all the generated stuff. And I mean, you really would, there's no end. We could just keep generating things back and forth and seeing what happened. It would be cool if there's a place for it. And ArtMine is a place where you can have a set of generated images from Playform become NFTs that are randomized. So people could go on to ArtMine and click a button, and they get to see a random NFT from the collection. It's from the data set that we've trained and images that we've selected to be an option. And then they can purchase that if they want. So it's kind of fun. You don't know what you're looking at, and then you just click the button and you're like, oh, I like it, I want to buy it. So I'd be down for that too. So I'm open to exploring all these things and learning and teaching more of it to everybody in a way that hopefully we don't lose you. Right? And I know not everybody's interested in NFTs. I just think it's good to know, because I don't know how many times I've been tagged in messages that say, is this a scam? And usually yes, usually yes. But if you know, and like in the NFT video that I did, you'll see how easy it is to make NFTs. So then you'll be like, well, why is this person trying to do this thing? And it seems really complicated, and they're probably trying to take advantage of you. And if you have the knowledge that it can be really easy, then you don't worry so much about that. All right. So that was Playform, Leonardo, Midjourney, how they were used in this. I think a lot of the questions I had were about, and what I asked was, as the artist contributing to this, if there's anything in particular people wanted to know about tools or NFTs, what AI brings up for people, how they feel about these creative tools, if you're choosing to learn about it or not. Is it difficult to find reliable information? And are you afraid of a robot takeover? Because I'm surprised how many people have legitimately said that, my past couple years of working with AI. And I think that there's a general sense that NFTs, people don't understand them. They don't understand what they are. They don't understand how they work. And then the same with artificial intelligence and machine learning. When it comes to art, or just in general, have no idea how it works. And thus, because of that lack of understanding, it can seem really scary, combined with the fact that the media is a fear machine and they, drop these sensational titles to get clicks. And there's a lot of spreading of that information that isn't correct. So, I had some of the comments that I got where I admit it makes me nervous. I honestly love AI generated art, but I don't know enough about it to create it. I enjoy seeing what others make, no matter how it's created, but then like wondering how in the world did they make this? People having trepidation, but understanding that it is part of where things are moving to. Let's see, someone said it's scary, and I hope that we can use it for a tool for good, but they don't trust humanity enough, which is why I'm doing the project, right? Involvement, education, and then learning how to moderate this stuff. That's also really important, because there are bad actors, and we've got to kick them out of our space. And that's why it's important that we're here, so that we have like a moral maturity of how we should behave in these spaces. And it's really important, I think, as women and artists to show up, because we are transformative. Like, we are the transformers of society. We are the people who birth new ideas, and literally people sometimes. So, you know, we can make all these things happen, and see a different vision than, you know, the male majority tends to see within things. So I think it's really cool that we have that capacity, but we need to be here. So I'm glad you're all here. Let's see, we have someone said they feel uninformed and suspicious, and then, oh no, does that make them an old person? And then they wonder what parts are good about it, and they see lovely humans using it in positive ways, and that makes them curious. And curiosity is great. That is awesome. That is the best way to approach things we don't understand. And it can, you know, you need to feel safe. And I hope that I can help create a space where you feel safe enough to be curious, and not like you're going to be taken advantage of by things you don't know. So we can use this technology in positive ways. It is our superpower, and how, you know, how do we choose to use it for good or evil? So, Amy, got your hand up.
Hi, I have heard recently a couple of things about that. There's about the eco problems, like because of the storage capacity and all the energy it uses. Have you heard much about that, or are there any of the companies maybe using solar power, or I don't know, just curious.
So Google is the largest provider of cloud storage and data, the processing. So Google is, I think it's either 95 or 99% green energy. So it is the highest percentage that you could get that is available for people to use. And that is where most of the stuff happens. I don't know specifically that a lot of people have said which systems they use, because I think a lot of people don't know, or they don't care, and that's sad. We want them to care. We want them to use the best forms of energy for this computing as possible, because it is massive. And Midjourney being the largest, there are 15 million people who are like signed up with Midjourney. And I think I read earlier that it's like between 7 and 8 million active every day. That's a lot of people using a lot of computing power. And it is green energy that is almost completely powering all of that. So a combination, I don't know specifically how that breaks down with Google. It is something that people ask about. I attend the Midjourney office hours, which are between 2 and 4 hours every Wednesday, and listen to updates and philosophy and Q&A. And I think it's really great that they do that and try to be as transparent as possible with the people using the product. That is another reason that I'm like, okay, if I'm here and I'm showing up, then we can affect these things. We can ask other companies and other places where they do their computing, what powers it? How can we change that? But if we don't show up and say it's important, then who will?
For sure. Yeah, speaking up is key.
yeah, I'm really glad you asked that, because I don't think anybody else mentioned that in the questions. All right. Was that everything, Amy, for now? Awesome. Thanks. So let me see here. Oh, I was going to say about the age. Someone if they felt if they were old now, and I wanted to say that most of the people who have adapted to use this technology are over the age of 40. And of those Midjourney users that I mentioned, most of them are over the age of 40. I think it was like mostly over 45 actually, and that is the largest percentage of people who are of that age that have ever been like the adopters of a new technology, which is really cool because that's just never happened before. But apparently we have the language skills and we have more life experience. And so younger people don't have that. They struggle with how to prompt using language because the Midjourney is primarily language based. They do have tools for just image, like the blend tool I talked about is just images. You can add language to it. And when you're trying to get a specific result, that language is really helpful in those prompts. Tools like Midjourney, you don't need language. A lot of these things you also have to pay for. So younger people, typically terms of service and paying for things, they are excluded. But it is really cool that there are so many people, like I talked to people in their 70s and 80s who are like, learned Discord to do Midjourney to make art, and they've never done that before in their lives. Let's see. Someone said that they feel like there's a technical barrier to entry for usage, and that's probably feeding paranoia, just that unknowing, not knowing how to wade through all the information, the tutorials, to figure out what to do, feeling like they're frustrated and out of the loop. And I get that. If I had just shown up today and tried this stuff, I would be lost. But I started with Playform like 3 years ago, and it was just sort of, and I've always been fascinated by technology. So I realized looking back that like, okay, I had my first tablet when I was like 8. It was this video thing. And I was like, my doll was electronic, one of my favorite dolls. It like had sensors and talked to me and like was like temperature based and like would talk about the light. And I'm like, okay, not everybody had these experiences and thought they were as fascinating. So when I discovered Playform, I had applied. They had a residency thing. And after I applied, I was like, you know what? I don't even care. I'm just going to subscribe and learn it myself. So I did. And it's just sort of this whole year or so exploring and using it and figuring it out and meeting other artists who were using it and hearing what the heck they were doing, which was just amazing. And there's a whole history of AI art that goes back to the 50s. So there's just so much to learn. And I feel like everybody has just it's been thrown at you this past year. And you're like, it's too much. I don't know where to start. I don't know how this works. I don't know what it is. Slow down. And even I am trying to keep up, and it's impossible. I have a favorite newsletter that drops the best information, articles, most important things every day in my email. And that is the only way that I have been able to like feel like I can know what's going on, because there's just too much happening everywhere all the time. So while you are working on one project, probably 10 new AI things have like come out. Somebody asked me yesterday if I had watched the congressional hearings that they're happening about this technology and people were learning about it. And I was like, no, I didn't even know that was going on. So I have apparently like 3 hours of that to watch. But everybody is learning about it together. And everybody is talking about it and figuring this out. And if you haven't been creating, don't feel overwhelmed. I got you. So we're here. And that's the big thing too, that I think a lot of this stuff can feel gatekeepy. Like with NFTs, I really tried to like enter into communities that were, really about women taking up space. And I felt excluded in those places. And so I can't imagine how you all feel looking at this stuff or being like, I'd like to make an NFT. And I'm like, I tried to show up some of those spaces and was like, this is so beyond. So I think a lot of it is getting simpler because it doesn't have to be as complicated and elitist as it has been. So I'm all for the accessibility. And I think that those different models, there are different models that, depending on your practice, you might want to use Playform and just feed it 30 of your images that, if you're a painter, and see what happens. If you want to explore in a different way, like if you've never made art before, or if you're a writer and you want to make visuals, Midjourney might be a better place for you to start. If you, there are a few others. I say like my 3 favorites are probably Playform. I like Leonardo because you can train something, and Midjourney, and none of those things require you to have the computing power at home to train the models and have to learn how to run and use code. Because I'm speaking to artists, I don't even have the time to go and learn all of the stuff. I've done some coding in the past, very, very basic, because I've needed to do it for something else. But otherwise, it would be a whole other language to learn just to do the thing I want to do. And you can do the thing you want to do without all of that. We do it all the time. If you have Instagram, you don't know how Instagram works. It's like a mystery. The people at Instagram don't know how the algorithms work. They don't even know. So how are we supposed to know? Everybody speculates, but we can use the things to do what we need to do. Let's see. And I answered the question about the AI being part of the project, how it was used, and then that the images are within a closed system. That is one nice thing about Midjourney too, is it happens on Discord. And so while there is a web component, like everything that's happening on Discord is within a private community. So, and there are terms of service. Everybody's supposed to be nice. If you're not nice, you get kicked out. I think those spaces where we can do things and be nice to each other are super important, because we're all just trying to explore and have fun. The future of AI art tools. What is the future of AI art tools? They're going to get better. Have you all noticed that every time now you sign into something on the internet, like Google, or if you use Grammarly or Canva, you now have access to AI tools? You're like, okay, now I can make images, I can do this. Websites, it's going to be kind of everywhere. And a lot of those are just basic standard diffusion. They're just giving it to you and being like, here, try to make something. I'm not sure how it'll turn out, but good luck with those. I think were you still all there? Oh, yeah, okay. Lost my window. I thought you all disappeared. Okay. The tools are going to get better. If you're involved in the processes of these tools developing, you can give feedback. You can influence how they get better and who they get better for. So I think it's really important to know, like I mentioned those meetings that every Wednesday. So if you want to know more about Midjourney, please ask me because I'm there. I enjoy it, but doesn't mean you have to sit there for 4 hours and listen to it. I can give you the details. People do take notes and share them. These meetings are private though. They're not allowed to be recorded. They're not allowed to be broadcast. It's only for the community, because people like to take things out of context and say mean things. But we discuss the future of where things are going to go. There are lots of polls. We test things out, give feedback on those things, discuss it. So you can help form all of this. If you want to get involved with Playform, let me know. Right, Terry? Oh, Terry, I can't hear you. Yeah, thumbs up. Okay, yeah. There's a great opportunity for feedback and shaping the way these things are used by artists. I think it's really cool that artists have been asking for something from like Midjourney, and they talk about this magic paintbrush that maybe we'll get someday in the future. But using our sketches and using our abilities to draw, and that's really important to a lot of people. So And the capacities for these tools are going to go into 3D and motion and more accurate rendering. So I think having tools, more tools developed specifically for artists, and that those tools continue to get better is going to be part of our future. We do need to be careful because this is the big concern. There are corporate interests who want to benefit from this stuff. So this is why right now we need all of the women and minority peoples in there speaking up for us, making sure that these things stay tools for us and not to be used against us, which is a concern with lawsuits, which I'll talk about that in a second. Future of art is the next question. Where is it going? It's not dead. It's not dying. It's always been here. It's always going to be here. So if you are afraid about artists, and I've heard people, they're like, my art students, they don't know if they should go to school for art or not. And I'm like, that's a bit extreme. Definitely, if you are called to study art, you probably can't survive without doing it. So just do it. And it's going to be hard no matter what. But it's also really rewarding. And it's still going to be here. One change, is that things are more accessible, and there is a lot of talk about artists having to have learned how to make art a specific way. And I know self-trained artists, and I know artists that I went to art school with, and I know people who have master's degrees and people who, are just learning to paint with some acrylic paints and some brushes they just bought. And I see all of these people as having valid things to make art about. There's nothing that can exclude you. I think everybody can be an artist. The art world is a whole different thing. And I think this has the capacity to change the art world. We can, once again, it can give us more control. It is definitely going to change some things because it's already started to change some things around art competitions. And I think the language will continue to evolve, just like it did for Photoshop, photography, Impressionism, all these things that people hated and said weren't art. So I think that we're just going to have to expand our idea of what art is and who can do it. And it's not all for money. That's the other thing, is I keep hearing this thing about like tech bros and, that's not who developed it. This stuff's developed by researchers. It's developed by artists. The corporate interests are coming into play now because they want some of it and want to figure out how to make money off it, because that's what they do. But I don't know if you all heard about that letter that was out that everybody signed. That was the open call to pause. Yeah, Terry, we were talking about that. Sort of that it's like this. It was playing into a lot of the fear that people have, and it was saying we have to pause this stuff. We have to pause it. It's too scary. But then if you paid attention, like Elon Musk signed that, and then like the next week he was like, I'm all in. All my money is going towards AI. So really, he wasn't that scared. I felt like it was just like, okay, we want to pause it and grab for power. And I think that's really kind of what was going on with a lot of the interests involved there.
He was one of the original backers of that organization. That's not the first letter that they put out on artificial intelligence. They've been doing it for decades. It's a bunch of, really good-hearted academics who are concerned and want to raise the awareness. So if you follow the thread, the previous letters, you will find that it's the same sort of tone. And I've been signing them for a couple of years because of my work with ethics and emerging technologies. So it was important to participate in it. I think that it's definitely, those things exist already. There are ethics committees. People are really concerned about this. Like it just happened, but no, it's been happening. Well, thanks for stopping, Megan. We didn't even get to the main thing that I know that we were wanting to talk about. She had some questions about the other day, but we'll get them. The letter, I felt like
just kind of maybe go, what was the reason for this, and all the people that were backing it right now and sharing it, and I know that the organization actually has history of, like you said, that's the history. I just think that the motivations of some of the people that were pushing that were definitely about, and if you look at their actions the next few weeks after they say they're so afraid, they're really into, they want to get involved. And I think we have to be careful about those influences, exactly, that people influence the climate to benefit them, as they already do so much. Let's see. So the next thing, which Megan didn't have to go, but the next thing is the big talk about theft, because this is like the major question everybody has, is the issue of theft and AI and art. And someone said, "Can you speak to this, please?" And someone else said that they're worried about illustration artists having their work stolen. And I would say this is the most sensationalized and worrisome point. A lot of people have had questions about copyright, have heard about lawsuits. There is at least one major lawsuit that has been formed by artists against the companies who are larger, who have trained using work from artists. And the way a lot of people look, see this, is that it is fair use, that these things exist and they exist on the internet. And the way that the programming works is that it's essentially like the same way we would look at something and study it, we're teaching it to a computer. And so it's learning concepts. It's not drawing on these images when we ask it to, we give it a prompt and ask for a picture of an apple. It's not looking at pictures of apples and copying and pasting certain things in. It's not a collage tool, which actually that one, I think it's probably the most talked about lawsuit, or at least the one that everybody keeps sending me and bringing up, is from these artists. And it actually talks about how it's a collage tool. And so at the very beginning of their lawsuit, I mean, everything's online. You can look it up. You can go through all their evidence. It's all there to check out if you want. I mean, it's really long and probably not that interesting to a lot of you, but I will let you know that I've read it and I've listened to other people talk about it and see, have the same understanding of it that I came to, which is really that they don't understand how it works, and they don't understand that it's not using their work. It's not copying their work. It's learned concepts from things. And those concepts are like, what is a dog? What is, they're more language based than even visual. And it learns, styles, and you can't own a style. I mean, copyright law doesn't allow you to own a style. You can have your style and you can apply it to things. And I think it really comes down to a lot of how people use this stuff, because there are people right now that just would copy artwork. There are painters who copy photographs of famous people and then they paint them and then they sell them. and I think that those are choices they make. And yes, the technology allows us to do these things faster. But a lot of it really comes down to the intent of the person making the stuff. And you should also know that you can't actually make an exact copy using AI technology. It couldn't, because it's not referencing the original image when you ask it for something. It used thousands and thousands of images, hundreds of thousands of images to learn. And where we're training our model on like 34 images, these other things train on so many more. And so their concepts are really vast, so that we can combine things, like combine a style of, what was I doing earlier? I was doing vintage hard candy made in the style of Hilma af Klint. Like, I just thought it would be fun, and I'm like making vintage. And now that's not something that she ever did, and it was also a photograph, so it was like realistic. And so you can take these things and combine them in a way you've never been able to combine them before. Like, how would you apply paint to, and it's actually like the ability to combine media with these is really cool. So, and as an artist, I'm free to have as many influences as I want. So, how I combine those and how they show up in my work is unique to me. And as artists, if you study anything, that's what you're doing. You talk about your influences of your work and how you came to be making what you're making. None of us are an island in that, and nothing is really truly original. So I think it really does come down to how you're using this stuff. And I don't think that lawsuit has a lot to stand on. It's still going on. I did get to be part of the reviewing of materials for a copyright case and helping to compile the process of how a graphic novel is created so that it could gain copyright and using Midjourney. And so that's just that. I mean, it was a really interesting process to see how the legal system determines that, and nobody really knew, because we are coming up against new situations. And so I think there will be lots of talks about legality of things. And a lot of people don't understand artists' rights to begin with and what's fair use and what's derivative. So I think there's going to be cases that argue this, and we'll have more clarity in the end. But I don't think that you should worry about it. There aren't a lot of cases of even artists whose work has been used in the training data. Except for maybe Greg Rutkowski. It really made poor Greg, it has caused him. This is a phenomenon nobody could have ever predicted. So whenever these things came out, Greg Rutkowski makes fantasy art and is a favorite amongst nerds. Okay, so nerds are definitely some of the early adopters of this technology and trying to make art with it. And so one of the names that they started to put in to see and make art in a style was of Greg Rutkowski. And it happened to start a trend. So people who would come on the platform and look at other people's prompts and other people's artwork, they'd be like, oh, I like that. They use that term. And so people will copy other people's prompts because a lot of this is happening within communities and being shared. And so poor Greg Rutkowski became the #1 name referenced on all of this stuff. And so then his name is also on a lot of this work. And if it's not happening somewhere private, it can be searched by the internet. And so when you search his name on the internet and he's a current working artist, you can't find his work now. And he could have a hard time finding his own work because his name was so popular and his style was so popular and so many people used it and loved it that now it's lost. So I don't know how that'll play out legally, if if there will be anything that happens for him, but that's an extreme case. He's really the only one that I know that has really happened for. There is another artist who does similar work whose name kept popping up and popping up and popping up, and he actually teaches on Midjourney every Tuesday now. He was like, oh, this is cool, people are making things in my style. So now he goes on, he teaches them how to do digital painting. So there's different approaches to how you want to react to something. And I think a lot of artists feel threatened, and it's not so much about whether or not they can make art, but it's more a systemic issue about a threat to their livelihood. And so I do want to mention a lot of people in the AI world are pro universal basic income. And I think this is something that's going to keep coming up as AI technologies show up in more and more places. And we have to make a shift from the scarcity mindset to a post-scarcity world where we all have enough and also have some more freedom and can allow these technologies to do work. And our value isn't based on how much we can produce, because that's really the system we've been in, right? And I know within our Thrive Together network community and the women that I know, we fight against that all the time. the stigmas against like not being 100% productive all the time, and of celebrating your life and your wins and resting. Like those are all really important things, but not to our society. So I think we have like a really cool way to engage in these conversations now. And if AI can bring that up for people, if it can make them realize like, oh, my livelihood might be in danger. I never realized that before. Well, you've been very lucky if you haven't realized that before. But also, I think that it's important to recognize that maybe we need to change something else. That it isn't just this one instance with art, that it's something that happens all the time and that we can change it. One of the really cool things about AI is that it actually helps people be more creative. I went to a talk about creativity and it was a neurologist talking about the neurological studies and the new definitions of creativity. And for a lot of time, they thought it was your ability to come up with new ideas. You know, people are considered creative because they think differently. But creativity is actually now defined as something that allows you to switch back and forth between these modes. To know when to be in ideation and when to know, like, then to switch into action mode and then switch back. And it's the ability to go back and forth that makes you creative. And so AI helps us so much with ideation and exploration. And then there's the component of action. And so as artists, we're really poised at like a really cool place that we can bridge these worlds. Right now, we can look at the people who are just learning about art and discovering art styles that they literally didn't know existed until they read it in a prompt and were like, what the heck is Rococo? You know, and then they start looking at it. One of the new tools that was developed by Midjourney was you can put an image into Midjourney and have it describe it in text. And so if it references artists, it gives you links to those artists, like Wikipedias or their webpage. And so it's become like a really cool research tool. So if you are interested in a style, now you know where to start going to look for more artists of that style and investigating it. Seeing the sheer number of people start to have an interest in art history, I was like blown away. I'm like, all of these people who were like, know nothing. They're just, now they're all into art history and certain styles. And I think it's amazing that this thing can do that. But we have the ability to see what they're doing and to teach them how to practice. And, you know, as artists who have been doing this, we can say, welcome, let me help you. You know, here's a book. And engage people in their new, you know, hobbies and interests. The other thing we can do is say to other artists who are scared, don't be scared. This is cool. Come join us and check this out and see how you might use it in your practice as a painter or a writer or a musician, to come up with new ideas. And some of the questions that I have were about fears about people losing their creativity and things becoming stagnant because everything's the same. And I haven't seen that. I really haven't. And I know that if I've been doing this for 3 years and coming up with new ideas and everybody else has discovered this maybe about a year ago, and I think a lot of people get into it and they get started and then they don't know what to do because they're not artists. They just make a few things and then they're like, I don't know what to do with this thing. And then maybe they're done. But there are a lot of other people who get engaged and keep it going and then come up with new ideas. And there are collaborations happening. So many collaborations. It's kind of crazy. Like all these people were like, hey, I want to write a graphic novel. And they're like, I don't know how to write it, but I want to make this art. How do I make this art? And then there's like 20 people making a graphic novel together that I don't know. They're like, you know, don't have creative jobs or careers or has anybody seen the Pope in the puffy coat images? just what is he? He's like, I don't know. There's like a puff coat Pope and somebody did all these images and it turns out the guy that made these, like nobody knew who he was. And I guess somebody found him and interviewed him and he's like a construction worker and he just thought it was fun And so now I'm like, I guess he's an artist now. He makes, whatever this commentary is that he's expressing, people were really interested, and they look photorealistic. But clearly we should know that's like, we should have enough knowledge to know that's not actually the Pope. There's also ones of the Pope doing parkour, which are, I think, my favorite. But I know that it's not the Pope doing parkour. That leads to another question that I have had a lot of, is about, concern about deep fakes and how do we moderate that stuff? And I think those are questions that are good to ask. It's really good to think about how these things might be used against us to influence us. The Republican Party in the United States just launched the first AI generated advertisement for and they said up in the corner in very, very tiny print, it says that it's all generated by AI. I'm not sure about the voices, and I'm not sure about what content came from where, but there are images. And then the other question is, how many terms of service did they violate in creating that and using it the way that they're using it? Because as like part of these things, you agree to certain terms when you use them. Thanks, Amy. So there's a lot. There's definitely a lot to think about there too. And it is concerning because we don't want governments using these things to influence us. In regard to AI and how it's being used in China, there are different laws. So in other countries, they don't have as many freedoms as we do already to create in the way that we're creating. And we want to keep those, but we want to make sure they're also like not used against us. And I think that media literacy is a big component here, because we're already media illiterate as a people. Like, if you think about the entire history of people and how long we've had media that we now consume like 24/7, we don't know what we're doing. Like, in the scope, we're like little toddlers running around like with devices. And if you don't take them off of them and make them think about what, they can't think about what they're doing. But we have to be aware that that's what we're doing and that we're consuming these things. And so I think these are important conversations to have about our media literacy. Someone did comment that it now makes them think that every picture they look at, they wonder if it's real. And I think that can be a good thing, because you should already be wondering that. We've had the ability to manipulate photography as long as it's been a thing. I don't know if anyone remembers the fairy photos. It was like shortly after photography became available for artists to do. There were these like photos of someone that they made, fairies, and put them in the photos, and they weren't real. They did it with like, light and editing, and people assume that photography is absolutely real. And that's a dangerous assumption to make. Like, I think you always have to question, why am I looking at what I'm looking at? What is the intent of the person who's showing it to me? What story does it tell? Who does that benefit? And I think those are major questions that like people don't know how to think about right now. So if everybody starts to question what the media is showing them, and if it's real or not, I think we can only benefit. Let's see what else I have on the list here. Any thoughts from anybody about danger?
Photoshop.
Photoshop.
Photoshop, yeah. I mean, going back to Photoshop or digital darkroom, which I think was the precursor. The manipulation of digital and photo images, has caused a lot of controversy. And I think it still continues. Like, you can't tell in certain cases the difference.
Yeah.
So, and you can manipulate anything in. If you're really good at that, then you could do whatever you want with it.
I have a master's in that. So yeah, it's my master's degree is in digital photography. So I think for me, it's been easy to think about, well, is this real or not? Because I actually studied like how to make things, be as accurate and as high quality as possible. but yeah, the Photoshop thing, and I think it's an interesting point because that's probably the only other thing that most of us alive remember being a big change to art. And there are still photographers that are like, I don't shoot digital. I'm like, okay, that's a choice you make. You don't have to shoot digital, but it's a thing and it's available if you want to, and you can learn about it. And that's doesn't change the value of the image that's being made, whether you used, digital negatives or film negatives. They have different aesthetics. They have different choices you make as an artist. I do find it interesting. One of the artists who participated in the project is a photographer I went to grad school with, and she got super excited when she discovered Midjourney and made a piece that she used Midjourney to make an image and then turned it into a negative to make a photograph. So, right? I'm like, why didn't I think of that? That's so cool, right? But there's also, I know an NFT artist who does, I think she did stuff with Playform, who does Polaroids, of her final pieces. Like they're available as Polaroids. So it's just more tools, more ways we can talk about the world, and what we're experiencing through different media. And there are a lot of artists. It's a new language to move between digital and analog technologies and combine them in different ways, which I think is really fascinating as we move forward in this strange technological front that we're on. Let's see, we talked about lawsuits. Oh, I was going to mention questions about authorship. As I said, I study photography mostly, and in graduate school. And I wanted to mention Sherry Levine. Is anybody familiar with the artist Sherry Levine? And her work was all about rephotographing work that already existed. And part of it was rephotographing the work of Walker Evans. And so Sherry Levine was taking this work and claiming it and putting this entirely like feminist lens and speaking out against sort of his patriarchal views and everything. So it was really interesting from that perspective, but also she has done this over and over and over as her process. And then there's somebody else who has a website that's like aftersherrylevine.com. And so you can go there and someone else did the same thing to her work. So we're talking about authorship and appropriation and, what is fair use of the work, and is it creating something new? And that happens conceptually within these pieces. But part of Sherry Levine's work was to question authorship and define it by the use rather than the individual creation. So that's always like a cool thing to reference about, when we start to talk about these things with AI. But it's the tool, it's not the creator of the work. And if you use it, you're making the decisions. Yes, there are decisions that are programmed into it. Like certain programs will have a certain aesthetic. Like if you use Leonardo's base aesthetic versus Midjourney's base aesthetic, those things are going to be different. And that's through programming. And any language you speak is going to have its own qualities, and so do those things. But those are still tools that we're using. You can go on some of these tools and accidentally make a really beautiful image, and they're getting better and better at that. Midjourney's new version has two options. And one is actually because people got really frustrated because it was so hard to use the new version that they made like an easy mode that just kind of looks prettier, but it has more of like a style that you can't control. It has more style applied to it so that people who just want to make like cool images can come on there and play around and make cool images. But if you're an artist, you can use the raw mode, which doesn't have any of that influence, and you have to put the influence in. So you really have to be creative with your words and be succinct about like what the style is, what the medium is. you can describe if it's a photograph, what kind of lenses you want to use, what kind of film it was shot on, all these things that most people don't even know how to start considering. And so when they got really good, people got really frustrated with it. And so now there's like sort of two modes. And I think that things may continue to divide that way as like tools for artists and things. And the way I see it is kind of like Photoshop versus the phone app that anybody can pick up and use. Like you just, okay, here's a filter, here's something, now my picture looks good. They don't really know what they did, but they got something cool. And now, but Photoshop is a completely different thing and you have to understand it. Let's see. What else is in the questions? Talking about the accelerating the breakneck pace of production that social media fosters. I will say that there are people who are saying that this, needs to be understood very differently than social media. This is not social media. While people may share things and engage in a community, that this isn't that. And we want to differentiate it because social media was originally social networking. And then it became media, which is being sold to us and consumed by us. And we are in turn selling that and being consumed by it. So I think that a lot of people don't want this to be that. Also, good news, we can set the pace of our own work. We can make choices about what to engage in, how the new technology is used. I think it's important to learn about, even if it's so you can decide you don't want to use it. It's better to make the informed decision than to just use it blindly like social media. And again, that's about media literacy. And what does that look like? How do we teach that to people? Again, we're talking about capitalism and how it needs scarcity and constant production and consumption. So what does it look like if we slow down and make sure everybody has enough? Like what does that, what do we learn then too? What are we able to learn and what are we able to create if that was, if that was the case? Someone said AI makes them think of a computer that they could have a conversation with. And I think that was really good because they were afraid that it will remove people from real connection with other humans. And I think they're picking up on an interactive part of these tools, and that's important because we use these language models and it makes the tech accessible to people. And so we can choose to engage with other people and cross the border of who knows how to code and who doesn't, and who knows how to make art and who doesn't. So now we actually can talk to a lot more people. And as someone with a chronic illness, I will say that technology can be a place where you can connect with people and make meaningful connections. We just have to choose to do so. And oftentimes we're acting blindly. We're not making that choice. But I've actually met some people from communities of AI communities in person and hang out with them online. And it's been really cool. Some really great people. So be open to connecting with them. Let's see what else. Someone mentioned they're worried about creative tools being used for advertising or cheap knockoff prints. And I think that, like I said, the tools increase efficiency, and we have to be aware of corporate interests versus the interests of the people. Those systemic issues, how do we address them? And it's good that people gain awareness of them. The education and perceived value was a concern. And I think that education, it's the heart of how we solve most problems. I think about Van Gogh's Starry Night. If you freaking love that painting and you are it's your favorite painting for whatever reason, if you own that painting on a print on your wall and on an umbrella that you carry and on a mouse pad and a t-shirt, does that make you love that painting less or appreciate the actual thing less? I don't really think that these things do. I think that they can help. They help you feel closer to it, and they help you appreciate it more. And there are concerns where, uneducated, misinformed people will use a tool to create something. And I don't know, someone could make fake Starry Night paintings and sell them to someone that's never seen it or doesn't know what it is. And it wouldn't be the same thing, but they could charge them like $1 for it. And I really don't know that affects a lot. I just feel bad. And I think that education is the answer to and then we don't really have a need for those junky sorts of things that don't add value to the world. I think most of us want to create things that add value to the world and are beautiful and meaningful to people. And once again, I think that this will increase, AI art increases everyone's knowledge about art and the art history. And, if patterns in history tell us anything, it's that the appreciation for physical handmade artworks will increase. Get down. Come on. Sorry, there are squirrels in my yard. And the windows are open. Okay. Let's see. We should be almost done with our questions here. They were all really good, all really important. Let's see. So don't know why people are making posts against using AI in art. Someone said that they work with it in parts and then bring it into their creation. I think that's awesome because people are scared, and you have found a way. You weren't too scared because you found a way to use it, which is awesome. And then if you can figure out how to make that as a creative, as part of your process of ideation or the final work or whatever, that's really cool. And I think a lot of people will be learning that in the future. And starting now just means you have less to learn later, and it won't be as big of a step. Someone said that they're watching things develop. They have an awareness and they're dabbling with ChatGPT to help improve their writing. And again, I think it's awesome that you're paying attention and you want to try to learn how to use these things. ChatGPT for artists who hate writing statements is a beautiful tool. I don't know if everybody realizes how easy it is to use and how helpful it can be. You need to know that it's not always entirely factual. But if you are asking it to rewrite something for clarity, or you're throwing a big jumble of words that you journaled about what your art is about, you could put that in ChatGPT and be like, make this into a paragraph that makes sense, and it will. And the better you are at telling it what you want, the better it's going to be at giving you what you want. And people can learn more about how to use that tool as well. But I definitely think playing around with it's awesome. The degradation. People were worried about the lack of innovation and degradation. And I think they meant sort of art and of society. And I really think it's the opposite. If we were to shun all of the new technology and say, no, I don't want that. We're not going to have that. We're going to outlaw that. And we don't want to make any changes, then things do degrade. Things, society is, you have to be constantly rebuilding things to keep them operable and functioning in the best way for society. And so if we do nothing, things will fall apart. So we have to continue the growth, and how do we continue it is the question. So how do we want to use these things moving forward to make things better? And then concerns about driving down wages. So I want to say that it could. I know that is for illustrators in particular who maybe make most of their money from doing custom things on Etsy, or working to do custom illustrations for companies. And I don't encourage companies to get rid of people. I think that if these people learn to use AI tools if they want to, because someone also said they're worried people will be forced to learn AI tools and use them if they don't want to. But I think it's something that people can use. Learn how to create a consistent character and could make things faster. Not that you have to, but if you have a job where you want to do those things, the possibilities are there. Knowing that The wages, like, once again, that is a societal thing, and we can start to change that. We can start to say that, like, people need more. We need to be taken care of, and that's a good thing to be aware of. So basically, knowing about AI, what it is, how it works, and what software to use. And I think I've mentioned all of this, but it's learning from the data that we give it. It learns the concepts and it references those when we give it a command. The tools that I would use would be Playform, Midjourney. Leonardo was pretty cool. And I talked earlier about why I would, maybe recommend any of those. If you have questions, please reach out, because I'd love to help you get started. I've taught a few classes this winter. And it was, really interesting to teach both artists and people who had never made artwork before. And if anybody hasn't gotten started with any of those tools and wants to, like I said, let me know. I do have links I can share, resources of how to get started and how to start to decipher what it is you need to do. If you need to get started on Discord and have never done that, let me know, because I can get you on there. I was thinking about making a Discord server for this project as well, to continue into the future for people who want to try out certain things, and we can have a community there to talk about that. And let's see, if I want to make sure I want all everybody's questions in here. I think we went over all the things except, oh, yep, we covered that. Okay. So I hope that after answering these questions, you know a lot more than you did when we started, and you feel more comfortable using the tools, learning about the tools, and don't feel scared. Don't be scared. I'll hold your hand. Got you. Awesome. Thanks so much for joining me today live, and your input and everything, everyone who got to come on here. Any other questions about the project or AI technology, NFTs? No. Awesome. All right. If you think of anything later, you all know where I am. Reach out. I'm always happy to chat about it. All right. Thanks, you all.